Hello, and thank you for joining me. And for this first unboxing, we'll take things out of the box. I got a delivery from my dealer, as it were. We got various animals and something else in here. And my thinking is like, let's populate our stories with various animals and some other ideas I have going with them, as I think will be clear. So, cobras for jungles and the like, and we have a few. And then this guy, I thought he was actually going to be smaller, so I was at first kind of a little distressed, and I thought, you know what? Actually, no, this is really cool. And then I thought, wouldn't it be cool to have a much larger one? We're going to have fun with this guy. I think he's got a lot of promise for storytelling. And some more cobras, because snakes are very unnerving. They are a near universal human fear or phobia. Greetings, Mr. Bond. Ha, 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 ha. Besides using these in my stories, I'm also thinking I can model this for some Cobra headquarters kind of stuff. And one of my son's animal totems is a manta ray, and so this was kind of a natural to get a couple of these guys. This one's got a little bit of rubber band on him. We'll have to get rid of it. But I'm also thinking about trying to scale up from there. And now we have a jaguar, and I guess in our world he'll appear in just about any jungle we need him to. But I would have to say, I think this is a nice job. And then we have these Japanese Army ammo pouches. And don't they remind some of us of the first aid and snake bite kits? I have a feeling that Hasbro reused some tooling, possibly modification. And then it occurred to me I really ought to have like a ruler to give scale for everything. And so here we are. And yes, the sequence is out of sequence, as you'll see. Okay, I'm looking at these guys as so-called army builders. Um, we got figures, we got some uniforms, we got some kit. Nice work on the back, if and sometimes a little unnerving, as I will relate. So let's get these things out. Um, but I do ultimately anticipate repurposing the various elements for other things. And now we'll get the air guy out. Ooh, nice artwork on the back, if a bit unnerving in a way. Like, we're teaching our kids to get ready for the apocalypse as that's a normal thing. Alright, let's take a look at these guys. We got a nice M40 sniper rifle, 3-color desert. His laces aren't tucked in. What's with that? Articulation, pretty good. Looks like those gloved hands don't swap out easily. But can we get his head down behind that rifle? If you're going to be a sniper, sir, you need to have a good cheek weld, good shooting position, all that. Sort of, kind of, no, not really. Like I said, I'm looking at repurposing, so that's not too disturbing. And let's look at this hat. Let's look at the hat on his head. Is that an option? Apparently no, but I haven't tried it on a flocked head, so maybe it'll work with someone else. We'll see. Oh, and before we go, let's check out his vest, because someone had asked about another vest, and I'm like, ooh, I didn't bother to check. So that's how that one works. All right, and now we have an SAS trooper. How realistic is he? Well, that's my answer to that. But like I said, I've got a figure, I've got a set of fatigues, I've got an SA-80, and I know they're not a good rifle. I don't want to go any farther, but I think they're cool, and that's good enough for me. So in my universe, the SA-80 is actually a reliable rifle that does well. And this SAS Para Bergen, I've got one, and in many respects, it's pretty close to the real deal. The pack itself is larger. There's some other details, but it's not far off the mark in a lot of ways. So that's pretty cool. We'll unbuckle this guy. The actual one, the straps tie off instead, but pouches are basically correct. And then we've got a nice storage area. And I'm thinking if we can sort of train the plastic, we could stuff a bedroll underneath the flap or something like that. And we'd be pretty close to the mark there. So I'm calling that one a win. That's a good pack to have. Let's check out his other accessories. This neck scarf is okayish, I would say. The hat, that brim is really large. Like, it's kind of Australian, if you take my meaning. But if we tuck it up 80s style, it works. So that's another win. We've got some various pouches. One of them went flying across the floor as I popped it out. I did recover it later, so we're all good there. Each one came with a pair of binoculars, same model, different colorway, as it were. They're not clear all the way through. Most aren't. But I think those are pretty cool. That's a win. Let's check out this SA-80 bayonet. Aesthetically, it's pretty close to the mark, so that's good. Does it fit on the rifle? Yeah, no, not even close. There's no provision for that at all. Okay. Well, there he is. Can he patrol his rifle? Yep. Can he get a good sight alignment? If he cocks it, yes. So, okay, I'll live with it. These Barbies usually go for crazy money, but this one has slightly damaged box, and I don't care about the box. So, I pulled the trigger on it because I was able to get a very reasonable price point, and I think it's rather elegant. I am going to say this. Barbie, some of the Asian Barbies, their skin is very European, if you take my meaning. I don't know, maybe they're Eurasian like my kids. These shoes, dear, they're, how should I put this, dear? Impractical. But I think overall it's a very pleasing figure, and we can use this in a number of photo stories in different ways. So that's a win. Very beautiful head sculpt and hair. I'll get rid of those protective things on her ears before we actually put her in a photo story. The dress is lovely, but it's printed, not embroidered, which lets the side down a little bit, I guess. But I'm not going to tell Mattel to up their game on that one. Coming down to these shoes, they're very elegant, but as you'll see, they just won't stay on. I think in a photo story, we're going to have to look at maybe putting a little white glue or hot melt glue to sort of tack them in place or something else. But other than that, I would have to say it's a win. So thank you, Mattel. Now, if I convince my family to go to Hong Kong for stock footage purposes. Okay, made to move Barbie. I've said elsewhere that give them gripping hands and you've got a true action figure. So let's get them out of the box. Now, one thing I noticed with this one, the little ties actually go into her head, as it were. So that's weird. Nice stadium background. Kind of cool. All right, let's finish getting her out of the plastic, as it were. And she's got this tennis racket and ball. More on that in a bit. Nice articulation. They're both good-looking figures. Let's take a closer look. Nice head sculpt and hair. Very good for a potential Scarlet figure, I think. Don't say it, but it's a little kinky dark with the hands like that. Ooh, I just said it. All right, let's get her out of that nonsense. This is the one thing that bothers me, okay? I know even the curvy one is like a size 4 dress, but these feet bother me. I'm going to replace the hands and the feet, I think. That's where we're going with this. But other than that, great potential. And this figure, I don't know if she's Asian, European, or like my boys, Eurasian. But she's got nice articulation. I think there's great potential here. And not as a tennis player, because I'll be honest, I hate tennis with a passion burns brighter than 1,000 suns. Sensible sneakers that actually stay on, so I call that a win. All right, let's do a little experiment. How do these shoes do on a made-to-move Barbie foot? Any better? Any worse? I think it's going to end up being just as pathetic. Oh, dear. Well, we'll work on that, won't we? Oh, well. And sort of shades of Big Jim, which was also a Mattel product, but at a different scale, make it make sense. We have this tennis racket and ball, and the racket grips the hand rather than the hand grips the racket. I was going to do something clever where I weighed my hand and everything came unboxed, but the camera wasn't on. So we've got a bunch of Japanese weapons, and because both sellers brought it down to a reasonable price point, we bought 2 packs. So a little crazy, but let's take a look. I know Japanese weapons come in for some shade, some of it justified, some of it not. But I think there's some potential here, as I'll relate. Let's first see if we pass the bayonet test. And we do. And, well, that's to be expected for Japanese rifles, yes? Because priorities. But this rifle was designed for paratroopers, so it could be disassembled at that point. And with 2, I can cut one in half as a disassembled rifle and add a few parts, and then leave the other one intact. So 2 rifles to make 1 rifle, but we get the special feature going. So that's a win. I wish 21st Century Toys had chosen the other light machine gun, the one with the hopper feed, because that's just bonkers. But these are still pretty cool LMGs. I'm sure we'll find a good use for them. This is my number one reason for getting this set, the so-called knee mortar, which, yeah, don't put it against your knee, as we know. And we get a bunch of grenades to go with, and I think that's really cool. I'm a big fan of the concept of a light mortar. I've heard very good things about them, and apparently they're making a serious comeback nowadays. So that's a win, and we can hang and fire and all that. So, cool. I have some characters I'm planning to introduce in my stories, and these subguns will suit them quite nicely. One of the 2 sellers included this bonus, so let me give a big shout out and thank you to this eBay store for providing these extra things gratis. I didn't even know they were coming. I actually reached out to him like, did you mean to send these with me? He's like, oh yes, they're extra. I'm like, thank you very much, sir. They're going to be very helpful for this planned group of characters I have in mind. So that's very helpful, and a big thank you. And we've got some accessories. So let's take a look at them. We've got a binocular case with some sweet binoculars. Very handy. And some questionable Japanese pistols, which actually is pretty cool because it can be part of the story. So I would call that a win. Thank you. One more and then no more. I think it's some really nice packaging. Very easy to see the figure and kind of sells it with the artwork and all that. And here you have some first responders and villains. Cross packaging labeling is a thing. I don't know. Let's get her out of the box and be done with it. Not too difficult to get out, which is also a bonus. Honestly, I bought her as much for the accessories as the figure itself. But the figure looks pretty promising, so let's call this a win. And let's lay out some of these accessories. We've got like a sniper rifle type thing. Get the plastic off that magazine. And we've got like these twin SIG in a shoulder rig. That's pretty cool. And there's also a couple grenades in their own pouches. We're going to be looking at those. And she's got a belt, so you can rig her up for some kind of mission or such, or use these with other figures. So I'd say that's a win. When it comes to this dagger that she has, at first I was thinking like Sykes Fairbairn, Pattern 3, or maybe it's the Fox Ratto or one of the other ones. I'm not sure. But the good news is, if you want the Superior Pattern 2, you can still find them. Alright, here's the AR-7, and I don't care what James Bond told you. There's no way you're blowing up helicopters and other stuff with this. The original AR-7 ran 22 Hornet, and then most of them are made in 22 long rifle. But it's still a pretty cool rifle, and since most audience don't know, I think we can get away with using it as some kind of like specialist sneaky sniper weapon or whatever. Put that in the correct way. I actually thought about reversing this so I'd be taking things out of the case, but then I realized that would be a tell, so we ran it normal. Alright, but I'd have to say that's pretty cool. Again, as I've said elsewhere, your villains need to have cool stuff or they're not really credible as villains, so that's a win. Alright, and then we have the Scorpion pistol. Really cool thing out of Czechoslovakia. 32 ACP, and this one's got a can as well, so a lot of potential there. I may end up making a holster for this rather than like slinging it. We'll see. And here's the twin SIGs, and thank goodness they are hammer fired, not striker fired. Yikes. So that's another cool thing. And again, your bad guys need cool stuff, so I like this. Funny thing is, as I was sort of playing with it, one of the SIGs just went flying across the room. Don't worry, I found it later, so no worries. With the dangers of elastic material. But it's a nice rig, and we'll put it on her, and you'll see it drapes well and works well. So, a win. We'll get a close-up now of the grenades, and the dagger, and my camera is swinging a bit. because it's on an arm to get the overhead shot. And here she is in all her glory. Nice articulation, cool looking clothes, very spy world, in a world where spies dress like fictional spies, I guess. That's all right. Could use her as a bad guy, could use her as a good guy. I'm not sure. But let's get this shoulder rig on her. As you can see, it drapes well. And let's check out her ability to hold stuff. Yeah, not in that hand. I guess she's definitely right-handed when it comes to shooting. Right-eye dominant too, I imagine. But this gripping hand grips well. It's got a nice trigger finger. All right, that looks good. Can she get a good sight picture? Do we have the articulation for that? I'm going to go with yes for this weapon. Okay, how about the AR-7 now? Well, having a little struggle here. Get her head down behind the sights. Can it work? Sort of, kind of, maybe. That hand can do some stylish bracing or whatever, so I'm cool with that. All right. Well, I think that's another win.
UFO is still maintaining its trajectory. The astronauts are in position. They can be spaceborne in seconds. Moon-based interceptors, imperative you obtain visual contact before making any attack. I'm sorry, sir. It's through moon-based defenses.